Today we're going to see exactly how tough a Nintendo Game Boy is. I have here a working Nintendo Game Boy that we are going to try in this washing machine. Historically, Game Boys have been known for being extremely tough. We know that one survived a bombing attack in the Iraq War, and we know that they can survive drops from very high areas, but not quite sledgehammers. But what happens if you accidentally put a Game Boy in Mom's washing machine? Well, let's find out.
I'm putting a GoPro 10 in the washing machine for this test just in case the Game Boy blows up. That full-length video will be available pinned in the comments at the very top. Our game of choice today is Frogger, which will stay in the Game Boy during the wash cycle. And before we put it in the washer, we're going to give the machine a fighting chance by removing all the batteries. In goes the Game Boy and 2 Tide Pods for freshness. We're going to set the washer for a normal 45-minute cycle and see what happens. This test was really tough to do. All I could hear when we were running this was the Game Boy rattling around, which would be tough to watch the whole thing. But again, if you like seeing electronics getting beat up, I'll have that video in the description. But I, on the other hand, couldn't deal with it, just like when I was a kid and saw the thugs beat up Johnny 5 in Short Circuit when I was 8 years old. But at least this time, when the washing machine ran, I didn't run to my room and cry for 30 minutes. Okay, so the wash cycle is now fully done, and the Game Boy is all in one piece. Frogger, on the other hand, didn't stay in the Game Boy during the wash cycle, so let's see what happens with this. Now, if Mom did in fact wash your Game Boy, the first thing you'd want to do is give it a fighting chance rather than put the batteries back in and try it. So we're going to simulate that by putting the Game Boy and the game cartridge in the dryer before we even try to run it. I had a drying rack ready to try this, but come to find out it's not going to fit at all. I really had no idea what the best way was to pad the Game Boy to prevent it from getting bashed around again, because putting the Game Boy in the washer would have been an accident at home, but the dryer would be intentional. Padding the system really didn't work very well, and it just ended up falling out and tumbling, so I ended up just taping the system to the drum and pray that this was the right idea, which it actually worked for the full cycle. But what I didn't get to do here was film inside the dryer with the GoPro. I've actually tried to do this before on other videos, and come to find out, dryers are absolutely horrible on cameras, and every time I tried it, the camera would overheat and shut off, but I guess that's to the Game Boy's benefit, assuming it doesn't melt. As we open the door, here's proof that the dryer was in fact hot, and here's the Game Boy after a 30-minute cycle. Does the Game Boy work? Well, whether it does or does not, you should look at Atlas VPN because its service always works to make sure that you are safe and secure online. They currently are running a fantastic promotion where you can protect any device for about $1.83 per month. Next time you're watching content that's blocked due to where you live, want to search privately, or just want to stop the Game Boy ads that you're going to see after watching this video, Atlas VPN is right for you. It's been great having Atlas VPN protect me from a million ads for that e-bike I talked to my wife about when my GameCube mic and my cell phone was listening into our conversations. Oh yeah, let's get back to the Game Boy.
So now it's the time for the moment of truth. Obviously, the front is not in good shape, but shouldn't prevent it from working if that's what's the issue. Oh my gosh. It works. Barely, but it works. The screen is full of moisture, but it works. So now we'll have to take it apart and see if we can clear the moisture off. Oh, wait. Did it boot up? Did it boot up? No, it did not. The splash screen came on, but it did not boot up the game. Something's going on. I'll have to take it apart.
Now it's time to take the Game Boy apart and repair whatever is causing the issue, or at least try to see what's causing the issue. I've never taken a Game Boy apart, so bear with me. But actually, I did have to repair this one when I bought it to shoot the video. A plate that the batteries sit on was corroded, and I did have to clean it off, but I haven't actually taken this fully apart before. But anyway, I have to remove 6 screws from the back of this system to get it to split apart with a special screwdriver. Once I have those screws out, I can split it apart, and there's a ribbon cable that holds both sides together, and I have to pull this to actually fully split the front of the unit off. The rear side has a little bit of moisture to it, but nothing really of note, and I'm just going to wipe it off real quickly. Now on the front side of the screen, in order to get to the area that's full of moisture, I have to remove something like 8 or 9 Phillips head screws to remove the PCB. The screwdriver I'm using is a little bit too large, but it's the only one I have right now for this part of the video. So once we remove these, there are some plastic fingers to press in, and now the front of the screen is entirely liberated from the Game Boy. We can see the water on the plastic screen, or maybe you can on the video, and I'm going to go ahead and clean the face off with some cotton swabs and some paper towels. The insides of the Game Boy are really basic and rudimentary, and I don't see any real moisture on the printed circuit board, but I'll just give it a quick wipe off anyway, especially the display screen. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the unit back together with the PCB back into the housing. The big screwdriver doesn't work to actually put it in, which I kind of thought it wouldn't, so I have to grab another one. Once I get this case back together, I'm going to go ahead and clean the ribbon cables off with some alcohol wipes and then finish putting the entire shell back together, or at least try to. I don't know if any pins were shorted out on the cartridge or the Game Boy from the water that caused it not to turn on, and again, I don't actually know what's wrong with the unit, so I'm just going to go ahead and use another wipe and cotton swab to clean off the inside of the cartridge as well as the cartridge port on the Game Boy 2, just to be safe. And if this doesn't work, we'll keep trying until we get it fixed. I've done a few basic things for this Game Boy, so let's go ahead and reassemble the unit by putting the ribbon cable back in, then putting all 6 of the screws back into the shell, hoping that cleaning each of the contacts and then wiping everything up did the trick, and of course we can see the screen hopefully if it boots up too. Now let's go ahead and put the batteries back in after we've taken it apart, and voila! It's booting up. The screen doesn't look that bright because it's the original OEM screen, but hey, now we know that for certain a Game Boy can survive being accidentally washed in a washing machine. But next time, can a washing machine survive a concrete block? I don't know. Make sure to sub to see that video later.